Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Thursday, June 30th. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi, and we begin tonight with major moves on the U.S. Supreme Court, from the historic swearing in of a new justice to two key rulings. First, a decision on the controversial Remain in Mexico policy. KPBS border reporter Gustavo Solis on the High Court's ruling and local reaction.
Remain in Mexico forced vulnerable asylum seekers to live in Mexican border towns while their cases were adjudicated. Pedro Rios is an activist with American Friends Service Committee. He says people in the program face significant danger.
We've seen reports of people that have been kidnapped, people that have faced abusive situations by Tijuana police or other municipal Mexican authorities, or even worse, where there are sexual assaults that have taken place, or even deaths.
Rios called on the Biden administration to officially end the program as quickly as possible. Remain in Mexico is just one of two Trump-era policies that limit asylum. The other is Title 42, which allows border officials to turn away asylum seekers without giving them a chance to see a judge. Julia Neusner is an attorney with Human Rights First. She says that as long as Title 42 remains in place, migrants will continue to be shut out from the asylum process.
The asylum system is far from restored. It's Title 42 is still in place. There is no access to asylum at the border, at ports of entry because of Title 42. So there are many, many, many people stranded in danger in Mexico.
A separate lawsuit filed by red states forced Biden administration to keep Title 42 in place.
What happens next for people at the border also depends a lot on how the Biden administration chooses to react to the Supreme Court decision.
Tess Helgren is Deputy Legal Director of Innovation Law Lab.
What steps will they take to truly end MPP swiftly and decisively now that they have the legal ability to do so?
Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
And a little bit later, a look at the major ruling impacting the environment and the historic swearing-in ceremony. San Diego County is still averaging more than 1,000 new COVID-19 infections per day. The latest numbers just released show that 2,048 cases were reported yesterday. The sustained increase comes as new, more contagious variants appear to be spreading. KPBS health reporter Matt Hoffman explains.
We're still seeing a lot of viral activity.
UC San Diego professor of medicine and infectious diseases, Dr. Robert Schooley, says wastewater data shows the more contagious BA.5 and BA.4 Omicron variants now make up about half of new cases.
So this virus is picking off people that have up until now not been infected and who have been really quite careful about vaccination and masking.
Schooley himself recently contracted COVID for the first time. He says keeping up to date with vaccinations is key for these variants.
This decreases the likelihood of being hospitalized or dying many, many fold.
Federal regulators announced Thursday they want Omicron-specific booster doses starting in the fall. The FDA is asking manufacturers to modify vaccines to better target the BA.4 and BA.5 variants.
What we really have here is a moving target. Very much like we do with flu every year. And we're going to have to struggle to keep up with this moving target with updating the vaccines.
Schooley says those who have not gotten vaccinated or boosted yet should not necessarily wait for these new doses.
You can always be boosted with a new variant when they're available, but if you get sick in the meantime, end up in the hospital, you'll be kicking yourself because you're waiting for something that isn't yet ready.
San Diego County's vaccination dashboard shows a little over half of people eligible for boosters have actually gotten them. COVID-related hospitalizations have continued to slowly rise, with 322 San Diegans admitted as of Thursday. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Over a 15-year period, 203 people died while in custody in San Diego County jails, and 10 so far this year. Now activists trying to force change in the way jails are run are closer to their goal. Here's KPBS reporter John Carroll.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now!
A familiar cry from the steps in front of the Hall of Justice this afternoon, combined with some familiar stories from family members of loved ones who've died in jails run by the San Diego County Sheriff's Department.
I'm the older sister of Saxon Rodriguez. Saxon Rodriguez died July 20th, 2021.
Evening Edition viewers have heard from the Weddle family before, but hearing their story and those of others here again doesn't make them any less gut-wrenching.
They made up a charge of drinking in public. Omar was not drunk, nor was he in public.
Tammy Wilson says her husband, Omar Moreno, was having a mental issue when deputies arrested him.
My life has changed forever. I am not the same person I was.
Activists Yusef Miller and Darwin Fishman with the Racial Justice Coalition of San Diego and the North County Equity and Justice Coalition have been working for years to get the Sheriff's Department to reform how it runs jails. Recently, the department added naloxone in all jail common areas to help prevent overdose deaths. But that's not nearly enough for these activists, and now they might soon see progress in the form of an injunction.
We had to file this motion in federal court because the county and the Sheriff's Department are not taking the actions that they know must be taken in order to safeguard the people who are incarcerated in the county's jails.
In addition, AB 2343, the Saving Lives in Custody Act, put forward by San Diego Assemblymember Dr. Akilah Weber, is making its way through the legislature.
If it is approved, it will become law to save lives in custody in San Diego.
The hearing on the injunction takes place on August 11th in federal court. The judge could grant it, could deny it, or take it under consideration. Whatever the decision, it will be the next step in the long struggle to do something about the alarming problem of in-custody deaths in San Diego County jails. John Carroll, KPBS News.
San Diego County officials expect thousands of people to pack local beaches over the holiday weekend, and as KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson shows us, those beachgoers could see new pollution warning signs.
The old system had an advisory or beach closure if pollution was detected. The new signs warn of potential pollution and the risk of illness without closing the beach completely. It is a new third option. Imperial Beach City Council member Paloma Aguirre says beachgoers will now have choices.
I think that it helps our community make an informed decision before going out into the water. So the new warning sign is telling people that, yeah, there may not be a 1 in 10 chance, but there's a 30 in 1,000 chance that you might get sick.
A new DNA test in use since May has regularly found pollution in the ocean off South County beaches. The contamination is traced to a broken Mexican sewage plant south of Tijuana. Wind and currents carry that contamination north. Clean water advocates say Mexican officials need to fix the situation. Imperial Beach residents lost access to the ocean for most of the past 7 weeks. The closures have also hit Coronado, where Mayor Richard Bailey says pollution warning signs keep crowds away.
They're changing the threshold once again, and they're saying, hey, even if the same conditions happened earlier this summer, you know what, we're not actually going to close the beaches. So either the beaches should have been open then, or the beaches should be closed now. And so it really just kind of begs the question, you know, what is this threshold and what is it actually based off, and is it the appropriate threshold to be using?
Supervisor Nora Vargas says the new system protects families and visitors without limiting beach access. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
After multiple extensions, California's renters eviction moratorium program ends today. The state moratorium aimed at helping renters weather COVID-related financial hardships allowed both landlords and tenants to apply and promise to pay up to 100% of back rent and utility payments. The city of San Diego's eviction moratorium goes into effect tomorrow. Tenants must notify their landlord in writing within 7 days that they cannot pay rent on time because of a substantial financial impact that's related to COVID. However, that rent will still come due eventually.
If you don't pay it, you will be evicted. And so to avoid having that balloon payment down the line, pay what you can. And if you can't pay your rent, Don't rely on the fact that there might be another rental assistance program coming from the state or federal government.
And you can find out more about the qualifications for the City of San Diego's eviction moratorium through the Legal Aid Society of San Diego. You can visit their website, lassd.org, or call the number on your screen. That's 1-877-LEGAL-AID. And now to an ongoing crisis, food insecurity in America. Government figures show more than 38 million people across the country lived in food insecure households in 2020. As reporter Gloria Pazmino shows us, low-income households are facing mounting challenges as inflation rises.
A bag full of vegetables and a little bit of food education.
Potassium is great for your cardiovascular system.
It's all on the menu to help Blanca Mateo feed her family for several days. Blanca joined the New York Common Pantry here in the Bronx at the start of the pandemic. 2 years later, she is still dependent on this crucial lifeline. Based on her income, she pays $10 to receive fresh produce twice a month. It's a big help. Record-breaking inflation, the high cost of gas, and price increases on everything from food to housing means low-income Americans like Blanca have seen little reprieve.
Food is one of the worst items hit by inflation in the last 4 decades.
This pantry tries to provide more than food. Participants get nutrition lessons, learning how to cook the produce and improve their diets. States with the highest projected number of people living in food insecure households in 2021 included Texas, California, Florida, New York, and Ohio. As the pandemic recedes, thousands remain food insecure. It could all have devastating effects.
You're going to see higher levels of diabetes, higher levels of cardiovascular disease, hypertension, certain types of cancer, and all related to, obesity and poor eating behavior.
When you're food insecure, access to fresh produce like this is not always guaranteed. Back at home, Blanca puts the nutrition lessons to work, like using less salt, sautéing with little to no oil, and fruits in a salad to make it more appealing to her 11-year-old son. Since joining the program, she's been able to come off high blood pressure medicine by focusing on her diet. While inflation continues to climb, pantries attempt to fill the void, but experts warn they're not a perfect solution.
This person had to have the ability to seek out and find a right program. Many people don't have that opportunity or choice.
Gloria Pazmino, KPBS News.
San Diego is seeing a boost in its ridership numbers on local buses, trolleys, and trains. Before the pandemic, ridership was near 100 million trips each year, and that dropped during the pandemic to just over 43 million in 2021. But things have turned around during the first part of this year as gas prices started going up. We're seeing those numbers at 57 million so far this year.
It's a huge savings. So the one trip on transit is $2.50. For a full day, you can ride for $6. We've got some really good transit options in place right now and more that are planned for the region's future.
With pandemic restrictions eased, more people are taking advantage of being out. MTS just opened the Blue Line to La Jolla, and kids ride free with the new Youth Opportunity Pass. Inflation is hitting every part of the economy, including local hospitals. KPBS health reporter Matt Hoffman says the financial blow comes as hospitals are still reeling from the economic strain of the pandemic, and it could get worse as California mandates loom.
More than half of the state's hospitals are operating at a loss or unsustainable margins because of the COVID-19 pandemic. That's according to a recent report commissioned by the California Hospital Association.
That means they are losing money every day caring for patients.
Jan Emerson Shea is Vice President of External Affairs for the California Hospital Association. She says more hospitals are losing money now compared to pre-pandemic.
It's probably going to take years for the situation to fully right itself. And in truth, there may be hospitals across the state that just aren't able to come out of this.
Inflation is only worsening the financial strain on hospitals. The report found that hospitals are generally caring for fewer patients, while costs are rising and labor shortages are growing. Hospitals have been turning to contract workers. It's an expense that's hurting their bottom line. Some travel nurses are being paid upwards of $300 an hour.
And California is not alone in this, so we're in a national bidding war, if you will, for these temporary workers.
Scripps Health is one of the largest hospital systems in San Diego. Its CEO, Chris Van Gorder, says Scripps has paid as much as $211 per hour for contract nurses. He says they currently have around 1,000 open positions.
And we're talking about everything from nurses to environmental service workers, to food service workers.
Van Gorder says the worker shortage and rising expenses is taking a major bite out of the healthcare system's profits.
We're seeing supply costs going up about 5 to 6%, but our revenue growth at best is going to go up about 3%. So these very small margins you're seeing hospitals make right now are going to get even tighter in the next couple of years.
There's also another financial cloud hanging over hospitals. The Seismic Safety Act was amended 20 years ago. It requires hospitals to be retrofitted to operate after earthquakes. It has a fast approaching deadline of 2030.
That has a $100+ billion price tag associated with it. We're running into a train wreck if something isn't done to relieve the pressure on the seismic issue.
Emerson Shea hopes hospitals get a deadline extension.
There's probably not enough money in the state to pay for all of the seismic requirements, but we may need at some point to have a conversation about at least some dollars being allocated. But right now, time doesn't cost anything, and it could be an enormous help.
Over at Scripps, Van Gorder is budgeting for the seismic retrofitting mandate, something that could increase with the cost of raw materials.
We're hoping to get a delay on that, but the legislature is struggling with that. That's $2.4 billion for Scripps. Legislators will look at the balance sheet and go, well, why? You look at all that money you have in the bank. Well, I can tell you, if we spent all the money we have in the bank right now, I would not be able to comply with SB 1953.
Van Gorder says hospitals, including Scripps, got federal COVID relief money from the CARES Act and the American Rescue Plan, but he says that money is gone. He'd like to see some more help from the state or federal government.
We're lucky in San Diego. We've got good healthcare systems. We've got good, strong healthcare systems. I'm not saying Scripps is not in danger of closing. We have a balance sheet that can support us. But when you look forward to all these challenges that I have to deal with, and particularly the unfunded mandates, the $2.4 billion in building costs that I have to do because the state says I have to do it. Other states don't have that problem.
While Scripps or other San Diego systems may not be at risk of closing, the Hospital Association says it's a very real threat for others. They were lobbying for increases in Medi-Cal reimbursements to try and help struggling hospitals, but ultimately they weren't able to get it in the state budget. California is allocating money for health worker education and training. There's also $1 billion in stipends to help retain staff. Again, here's Emerson Shea.
We need all hospitals in this state. We have roughly 400 hospitals in California to treat 40 million people in our state. We cannot afford to lose these very important centers of care.
Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
We will continue on our gradual cooling trend that we've just begun that will last through Monday. And then looking to next week, we have a warming trend that will be on the way. But all in between that, we still have to deal with some morning clouds, some low-level clouds, and some fog to be expected into those late evenings and also as we head into those early morning hours. So again, tonight, fog expected across the metro area. Take it easy if you're going to be traveling. Get plenty of distance between you and the car ahead of you. And again, even if there's not fog where you are, you may run into that on your travel. So just keep that in mind. More interior, little less cloud coverage. That's where you can find temperatures dipping down, but even not that much. Ramona falling back to the mid-50s. Borrego Springs warm overnight, 81. Mount Laguna, 64. Campo would be 58 degrees. For your Friday, you have some showers and also some storms. Some of that monsoonal flow that's just kind of lingering across the Four Corners and across the Great Basin. It's just so dry. It's still parched. At least it's not as hot across some of the southern Sierra, but again, along the coast, it will start to remain cool, and that's where you're going to find that cooling trend. San Diego County, San Diego itself getting to 74, Chula Vista 75 for tomorrow, El Cajon 88, Ramona 92, triple digits for Borrego Springs, and Mount Laguna 76. Well, there's the morning clouds for your Friday. And they don't even really leave and disperse the area until the lunch hour, and then they're starting to return even around 6 p.m. again. So that pattern continues. Then the hot pattern also continues across Nevada, stretching into the Four Corners this week, and you're going to see some thunderstorms erupting across the Four Corners. There's the cooling trend down to the low 70s for highs on the coast for your Monday and Tuesday, and even inland. It's down to 70s for highs for Sunday, Monday back to the low 80s by Tuesday, and across the mountains, see a nice little cooling trend, 68 for the high on Monday. Across the desert areas, a little bit of a cooling trend nonetheless, still in the triple digits through next week. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Michelle Rotella.
The Remain in Mexico decision we told you earlier wasn't the only major event today involving the Supreme Court. Justices also made a key ruling on the Environmental Protection Agency's abilities. And Ketanji Brown Jackson was sworn in. More now from reporter Chris Nguyen.
A historic day at the Supreme Court.
I, Ketanji Brown Jackson, do solemnly swear.
Following the retirement of Justice Stephen Breyer, Ketanji Brown Jackson was sworn in Thursday as the 116th member of the Supreme Court, making her the first black woman to serve on our nation's highest court. Jackson's swearing in comes as the court wraps up a divisive term that included a decision overturning Roe versus Wade. Thursday, the court released rulings on two big cases related to climate and immigration. One curbs the Environmental Protection Agency's ability to broadly regulate carbon emissions from existing power plants.
We've focused a lot on what this court has done to individual rights, especially with abortion. But another pattern of this court has been stripping regulatory authority from the federal government.
The court also gave President Joe Biden approval to end the Remain in Mexico immigration policy that originated under the Trump administration, which sent certain non-Mexican citizens who entered the U.S. back to Mexico instead of detaining them or releasing them into the U.S. while their immigration proceedings played out.
They do also hold firm to this notion that administrations are allowed to change their policies when the White House changes hands, and that does trickle down.
The Supreme Court's next term begins the first Monday of October. Chris Nguyen, KPBS News.
Governor Gavin Newsom says today's Supreme Court ruling on carbon emissions makes it even more imperative that California and other states double down on efforts to combat the climate crisis. Nicole Capretz, founder and CEO of Climate Action Campaign, told KPBS Midday Edition that while there is work to be done nationwide, she remains hopeful about where California is headed.
And if we can show it's possible and, build a market for renewable technologies and more climate solutions and show it on the ground, the infrastructure on the ground and the positive public health impacts and economic impacts of these projects, then I think the good news will spread and we will win.
California has made a nearly $54 billion climate commitment, which includes working toward 100% zero emissions vehicles by 2035, phasing out oil drilling and fracking, as well as creating international climate partnerships.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, the Supreme Court hands down rulings on climate change and immigration on the final day of its historic term. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
4th of July is almost here, and that means fireworks. Well, sort of. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer says some are celebrating with a new type of light show.
There will be no shortage of fireworks to see this Independence Day across San Diego. The Big Bay Boom is back, and so are many other firework events across the county.
If they want to see fireworks, please go to one of the shows. They're all over the county on the 4th of July. It's a safe way to go visit, spend time with your family.
The holiday doesn't come without its fire risks, says San Diego Cal Fire's Neil Chapinski.
This time of year down here in San Diego, like we like to say, is usually in a year-round fire season, and we are in heightened. We just had a real hot week last week, dried things out, and we did have some fires down on the border and up over around the county. So the danger is always there.
Fireworks of any kind, including even small firecrackers, are commonplace but illegal in the city and county of San Diego.
In San Diego County specifically, all fireworks are illegal. So any of the ones that you do see are actually not supposed to be happening unless it's at a registered show.
One company looking to change the traditional fireworks celebrations is teaming up with the city of Imperial Beach for a high-tech drone show. It'll be staged from the pier and synchronized to music with dozens of drones lighting the sky.
There's even a new drone show down in Imperial Beach that doesn't have any fireworks. You don't have to listen to any of the noise if that's a concern for you or your pets or maybe some of your younger family members.
Notably, Ocean Beach's annual 4th of July fireworks celebration off the pier will not be happening for the 3rd year in a row, nor will the fireworks at Camp Pendleton or at Mira Mesa High School. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
Even superheroes celebrate anniversaries. Take Superman. Fans are celebrating 60 years since he's been web-slinging his way into their hearts. Today at the Comic-Con Museum, a new exhibit helped highlight the masked hero.
It is really incredible to have him premiere here in San Diego, the world premiere of Spider-Man, and people will experience something they may never get to see again.
Visitors get to see original comic art, costumes, movie props, and so much more. And Fun Display is opening just weeks before the big Comic-Con convention downtown. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.